Hello, and welcome to our 2016 Australian Grand Prix review. After what a mess of qualifying was, we had a great race. If you've just seen the results, probably looks the same as everything that came through last year, but the way that we got about getting there was far more interesting than the ultimate podium would suggest. And there's some really key factors that make me look forward to hopefully a really interesting 2016 in F1. A couple of points that we're going to have a look through. Talking points from the race. Then we're going to have a look through some of the teams. And then finally, we'll have a look at what's coming up for the season ahead. Going right back to the start of the race, poor Kvyat didn't manage to see the lights go out in Australia for the second year in a row. So what we found after they did the extra formation lap was either one of two things: that the one paddle start favours Ferrari over Mercedes, or this is a continued weakness that we've seen for a couple of years now, that Mercedes don't do too well with the extra warm-up lap and then the restart, or not quite a restart, and then the start. It's not the first time that we've seen two teammates jump both Mercedes from the row behind. So one of the things that I'm looking forward to at the next race in Bahrain is seeing whether Ferrari really do have an advantage there, or whether it was just the extra warm-up lap that didn't help Mercedes. But if they can't get their cars off the line, then they can qualify up the front all they want, and we're still going to be in for a great year. There wasn't anything out of the ordinary throughout that first stint, other than maybe the Force Indias weren't able to keep up with the leaders as well as they probably would have hoped. You would normally expect with quite a short first stint, only 11 or 12 laps, that the leaders would pit and probably come out behind the midfield runners that are running long. But what was happening was that the guys that were right up the front, so Vettel and Rosberg, either came out in front of or right alongside the Force Indias, and that helped them run their strategy really well, didn't it? One thing that happened to Rosberg, though, was that he lost a fair bit of time getting past Hamilton after his first stop. So Hamilton's not going to give up and just hand over that position, and clearly nothing's changed there since Hungary 2014 when he was telling the team off on the radio. But I'm not sure that Rosberg would be too happy with the couple of seconds that he lost before Hamilton went off into the pits for his first stop. And then we really just finished that first round of stops when there was the massive accident between Alonso and Gutierrez, which reminded me a lot of the Webber-Kovalainen incident in Valencia in 2010, in that there was a slower car in front. The driver that was behind was trying to maybe just take a little bit too much of the slipstream. The result was one of the biggest accidents that we've had in F1 for a while, and it was really pleasing to see Alonso get out of the car. It's a testament to the engineering and the safety work that's been continually ongoing in F1 for decades now, and I don't think that F1's complacent now. You can see that in work like they're pushing forward with the Halo. That being said, if people for the last 20 years hadn't had that same attitude about pushing forward and continually looking to do better in terms of safety, we might not have been having such a happy outcome. The fact that Alonso could get out of the car and come over and talk to journalists and be unhappy that he's lost the power unit and potentially lost that chassis is a real positive. Looking at the safety of the accident, you have to wonder when F1's going to have a look at wheel covers. They've been introduced to IndyCar with the DW12. It's kind of difficult to think about the future of F1 without some sort of halo or cockpit and some sort of wheel covering. So I think that's where we're going to end up. But then following the crash, we had the red flag. I was really happy to see them use the red flag. It ended up only being 20 minutes, which is quite reasonable. I was at the track and didn't feel like an extended time at all, even being there. It's definitely preferable to see them use a red flag to compare it to, say, running 10 laps under the safety car. One, from an entertainment perspective, and two, from a race perspective. I'd rather see them race more of the race at full race speeds. It's also heaps better for marshal safety. They can get out there and clean the track without worrying about having to get out of the way of cars every 2.5 minutes. The negative thing about the red flag was that, as we saw in Monaco in 2011, it didn't allow the strategies to play out. And we were at a really interesting point in the race with Vettel leading by a couple of seconds and having the softest tyre on, and then Rosberg shadowing him with the medium tyre on, and it just didn't quite play out. I guess the other thing is with any red flag, you're going to have winners and losers. So Ferrari weren't the biggest losers out of the situation, but it wasn't a positive for them. The Force Indias had just pitted, and that put them back in a pack because everybody else got a free roll to pick their next tyre set. Worked out reasonably well for Daniel Ricciardo, and obviously worked out really well for Romain Grosjean, who we'll come to a little bit later. Then we had the interesting strategy play out with the super soft against the medium, and that's something that's obviously that's new for this year, the gap in the tyre strategies. And this is the first time that Pirelli have been bringing tyres with that wider range. At some points in the Bridgestone era, they brought a gap in between their compounds, so we'd have, say, a super soft and a medium. Pirelli have brought all three tyres in that range now. It's creating some really interesting strategies, and I think that was a real positive change. When Vettel came in for his last stop, he was obviously a little bit slow through there. The front left didn't get on as fast as he would have liked, and he lost about 2.5 seconds. Be interesting to see what would have happened if it had been a clean stop. That 2.5 seconds was probably about another 2 or 3 laps that would have placed him closer to Hamilton, and he would have been behind him on fresher tyres again. So if he had been there with the fresher tyres, would he been able to get past a little bit easier? As we know, the degradation on those softs is obviously higher than on the mediums. We then saw something interesting from Vettel as he was chasing down Hamilton, which was a mistake. And that's interesting because it's rare. Vettel's now in the situation where he's giving pressure. He's not soaking it up at the front, which he's clearly very adept at managing a race from the front. But we haven't seen him be the aggressor in these types of situations too often. He's obviously reasonably capable in wheel-to-wheel and can make the passes where he needs to, and that's really what's got him some of his wins, is cutting through the midfield on fresh tyres against older tyres. But he wasn't able to do that against Hamilton, and then he went off down at turn 15. Is that something that we're going to see again from him as he's trying to put more pressure on the Mercedes? Or is that just what it is, a rare mistake for Vettel? What we did see in both Vettel chasing down Hamilton and also with Verstappen spinning and then being able to catch right back up to the train is that despite the DRS, and it had a reasonable effect in Melbourne, it's still really difficult to overtake in F1. And the question then becomes, is it the right amount of difficult? Or is it still too hard? I'd really like to see F1 ditch the DRS and move to more natural overtaking. At the moment, with the way that downforce is working, it's kind of a necessary evil. So we saw following the restart that Kimi Raikkonen's Ferrari power unit got on fire. And that's not inconsistent with what we've seen from Ferrari so far this year. They had a number of issues through testing, and a lot of those were with Haas, and the question is it the new team with Haas? But then also Gutierrez dropped right off the back of the pack at the start of the race in the first couple of laps as he had an engine issue that had to be worked through. And then obviously Kimi had his retirement. Ferrari have made all these great gains and they appear to be close to the Mercedes, but is that at the expense of reliability? Ferrari have been pretty rock solid in terms of their reliability for quite a long time. We saw that it took Alonso something like 5 years to have his first mechanical retirement with Ferrari, and then go back to the Schumacher years, he had many years without a mechanical issue on his car. But is there a little gremlin there within that 2016 Ferrari unit, power unit? I mentioned before that Haas are obviously powered by Ferrari, and what a taboo. So that stuff like the Grosjean radio call is really what F1's all about. That's the type of stuff to put hairs on your back of your neck. You're talking about, I don't even know where we came, but this is like a win, and it was outstanding. It was really great to see the emotion in behind that. And sure, they had a great strategy with Ruth Buscombe and the team getting them through effectively a no-stop strategy. It's really great to see a competent F1 team starting, and none of the teams that joined in 2010 really acquitted themselves well. We've only got one of them left now, and it's in a greatly varied form. So it's nice to see Haas come in and do a good job, basically. They didn't just luck in with the strategy. To be clear, Grosjean was about 2 seconds ahead of Hülkenberg at the end of the race. So it wasn't as if he was running around Villeneuve at Hirama 81 style with 5 cars in arrears and only staying in front of them because of a Ferrari engine. It was overall car pace that allowed him to hold that spot. Now that they've scored points in their first race, where to from here? Well, that midfield's going to be a really tight pack. So it's going to be tricky for them to score some more, but hopefully they have some more days like today. Looking through the rest of those teams that are going to be in that midfield battle, some are going to be a little bit more up front, like Red Bull. Their race pace is obviously formidable, and that Tag now has enough straight line speed to get them in the fight, particularly with DRS that we saw. Toro Rosso looked like they should have been further up, and definitely they need to be making hay while the sun shines in that they've got the 2015 spec Ferrari, and that's not going to have any more development to it, and the other engines all are. So when most of the new engines start rolling out, whether it's in race 5 or earlier than that, they're going to find themselves falling behind fairly quickly. So they really need to be getting some points in early. They qualified really well, didn't quite deliver on what they really need to. Question with Williams now is, have they actually capped out on what the potential is with that car? Can they, within their current structure, actually get that car faster and not just be a slippery car on a straight line, but also have a bit more overall car performance for some of the slower tracks? You can see with Force India that they often attack the race a little bit differently, and that might work out well for them. They might score some more points. So that front of the midfield pack's really tight. And then just in behind there's going to be Haas, like we mentioned earlier. Renault did quite well with finishing 11th, and they're going to be tacked on to the bottom of the midfield. They're not going to be falling off the back there. Is it going to be McLaren going to be able to get involved there? And Mata, just at the moment anyway, don't seem to be just there. They seem to be the back markers once again. And is that their rookies just haven't got up to speed yet, or is it their car just hasn't been developed? You know, we know that they've actually got some development this year, unlike last year, and they've got that really powerful Mercedes. So really hope to see Mata getting in there. Rosberg really needs to do more of what he managed to do this weekend, which is win the race or beat Hamilton when he's not the fastest driver. And he lucked in a bit this weekend with the Ferrari sneaking through at the start, but he did manage to make that work for him, and he did get the win. And that's what he hasn't done against Hamilton in the last couple of years. That's really meant that Hamilton has walked away with the titles, is that Hamilton's somehow found a way to win even when he wasn't the fastest of the pair. Mentioned it earlier, but Ferrari look a lot closer again this year, and that's great to see. Like I mentioned in a previous video, I think that's in part about how the new tyre strategies are playing out. And you saw that Ferrari ran exclusively the super soft and the soft in the race. They didn't go anywhere in the medium, while Mercedes used the medium. And I'm really interested about those strategy changes and how they're going to play out throughout the year. But I think it's a really good thing for Ferrari that they've got effectively the option to run softer tyres. It's not just Ferrari to look closer. We've had regulation stability now for 3 years, and so that means that overall the field is compressing up. And like we had a look at earlier, that midfield battle is absolutely going to be fierce. So I think we're on for a great year. But I'm interested in what you think, so tell me what you notice about the Australian Grand Prix this year. Tell me in the comments below, and I look forward to have a chat to you next time. Thanks for watching.